how can we make our resumes ATS? What do you think are certain red flags in the hiring process?
Recruiter in the initial few seconds, forget about minutes, have already made a hiring decision in their heads.
Welcome everyone to Career Insights.
All right, everyone. Today I have a very special guest with me, someone who has seen the hiring world evolve over the years and one who understands very well what it takes to have a successful career. So I'm thrilled to welcome Nandita Bayan Borwa to today's episode. Welcome, Nandita.
Thank you so much, Nazia, for having me and for that great introduction. Thank you.
Okay. Nandita, she comes with over 2 decades of experience in HR management, leadership, and she has always been on the other side of the table, conducting interview, going through resumes. So I believe who can better explain us the hiring process and who can better guide a fresher or an early professional how to navigate the job market. So I am excited for this episode. So, Nandita, I believe it will be a very exciting episode and it will be very helpful, especially for freshers and early professionals.
I hope so.
So, before we dive in, we have been through several interviews, and let us be honest, we have always faced what I call the Alu question of interview. Tell us something about yourself. So, today I'll flip the script and I want to hear from an HR professional her take on this question. So, tell us something about your journey, about yourself, how why you chose this HR field, and what are your current role and responsibilities.
Sure, Nazia. So I don't want to sound cliche here, but HR in the simplest sense is actually taking care of people. For as long as I can remember, some of those qualities were innately there in me, even while growing up. Since you said that what inspired you to get into HR and a little bit about your journey, like I said, for as long as I can remember, even in my early days, I remember that I was that one person who would always like to resolve conflicts. When somebody is in need, try to help, if there's any communication gap, I would try to resolve that. I would myself speak with a lot of clarity, bring friends together, bring people together. So I guess those qualities innately were there in me from a very early age, because at that time you don't realize which profession you would get into and how life will unfold in front of you. But coming back specifically to HR, my first opportunity to get into HR, and very early on in my career, I realized HR has a massive role to play in the organization's success and in employee experience. So my first opportunity to get into HR came in the realm of training and development. I spent a lot of years in training and development, and there is nothing more rewarding and enriching than see people improve their skills and grow. From there on, I moved to recruitment, talent management, talent development, HR business partnering, leadership development. And over the years, then I realized the importance of having a compelling talent strategy for the organization. You did also ask about my current roles and responsibilities. So currently I head HR for India in Trigen Technologies, which is an IT company headquartered in Mumbai. It's a public listed company. We have more than 4 decades of existence, and with global presence across multiple continents. So yeah, that's what I do in my current capacity, Nazia.
Excellent. What an amazing journey. So what I understand is like whenever we say HR, so we think it is a like hiring and firing sort of job. But apart from that, you are into like counseling professionals, guiding, and sometimes you have to be a therapist also, right?
Yes.
Okay. So moving to my next question, what are the like top qualities that you look for in early career professionals or fresh graduates?
Of course, it's a mix of different things, but to make it a little more precise, I would say it's a healthy balance of technical skills and soft skills. And I strongly believe that if you have a strong character, which means if you know that you have your basics or your fundamentals right, you can learn with time. So when I say what are the skills needed for younger professionals, of course, a mix of technical and soft skills, but I think the positive mindset is one of the first things that at least the younger guys should definitely have. What I mean by that, because a positive mindset leads to a positive character. There's a strong correlation. And the positive mindset typically would mean for an HR professional a person who is willing to learn, a person who is willing to listen to feedback, willing to work with others. Mind you, I'm not using the word ability because the abilities will evolve and improve with time. Right now, I'm still talking about willingness. So, for a new guy, that willingness to learn or the willingness to take initiative, that part really forms a big, subset of, different elements when it comes to selection. Of course, then depending upon what is the or field or industry you want to get into, the technical skills would matter. But yeah, the first thing that really we look for while onboarding a new guy or a fresher or almost fresher is actually the attitude, because obviously the person has very limited exposure and experience.
That's an amazing breakdown. And I think all viewers, especially the early professionals, please note down everything what Nandita has referred to. So what I understand from you is that you look for a mix of technical skills, soft skills, the right attitude, and also I think a little bit of LinkedIn magic also works in such cases. Yes. Okay, next, let us move to the next question. Speaking of standing out in an interview, what causes stress in a job seeker is the resume. So, what, according to you, I want to hear the HR perspective. What is the ideal resume? This is with reference to early professionals and freshers.
Ideal resume, I'm sure we read a lot of blogs where people talk about, this 1-page rule, 2-page rule, etc. There's no rule, so to speak, neither there is a compulsion. However, given the fact that everybody is pressed for time today, for every job there are hundreds of applicants, so you need to make sure that your resume gets noticed. For that, I still do believe that for an early stage professional, for somebody less than 5 years of experience, I think still a 1-page resume holds a lot of value. So 1-page resume which has specific details, and since you're talking about early stage careers, specific details about any internship that the person might have done, any school project, college project, volunteering work. Again, all of these reflect a lot of character, right? If you have undergone any specific courses and certification apart from your academics, but beyond that, anything else that you can add, any special projects, like I mentioned, any volunteering work, any internship, any other new age courses, for example, coding, any workshop that you've attended, or any course that you've taken as a part of your hobby, feel free to add those details in the resume, apart from, of course, the basic details of your education and where you come from and etc. So I strongly recommend a 1-page resume for a newer professional.
Excellent. So, but then for experienced professionals, it will vary, right? 1 page
Yes.
might not suffice.
No,
But
it won't.
what you suggest is like for a fresher or an early professional, it's better to keep a 1-page resume, right?
Yes,
What do you suggest?
absolutely. For an experienced professional, Nazia, 1 page will not suffice because you will have to detail some of those things. Here also, a lot of people fall into the trap of writing down the job responsibilities in the resume. So you don't need to write down your job responsibilities in the resume. All you need are your achievements, and nothing like it if you can quantify those. So for a senior professional, I think it could be anything between 2 to 3 pages. Like for example, with my 22 years of experience, I still have a 2-page resume. So that I feel is quite effective, because again, if it is too text heavy, it does take a lot of effort and time. And again, we have moved to a stage where most of the sourcing and screening is done by automated systems. So anyway, your keywords will have to kind of be there in order for the software to catch it. So you need to optimize your resume rather than making it heavy.
I think everyone should take notes of it and polish their resume. I myself, like, I'll go back and I'll polish my resume now. Okay, so like you have talked about ATS. So when we started in our times, when we were freshers, whenever we see a job posting, we used to apply for it. And then the HR used to manually scan our resumes. If we passed that manual scan, then we were called for the job interview.
Right.
Now, with the rise of AI and automation, the ATS system has come up. So what is your take on that? How can we make our resumes ATS friendly?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a relevant question for this day and age. Of course, everything has its pros and cons, but there are more pros than cons. Pros, of course, when it comes to ATS, you know that if you have been able to optimize your resume, chances of your resume getting shortlisted for an interview is high when you know that you have optimized your resume. What I mean by optimization is, of course, making sure that there are no grammatical errors, for example, in your resume. Making sure that there are keywords which are directly correlated to the job that you are targeting. Skills whether they are explicitly mentioned or not in the resume. So those are some of the essentials. Apart from that, I think the other pros is even in terms of not just for the recruiter. Of course, for the recruiter, a lot of time, energy has been saved. So a lot of efficiencies from a recruiter's perspective, but also from the candidate's perspective. It's a lot more time saving for the candidate because there are no repeat questions. Also the experience, right? It's not overwhelming, right? You don't have to keep manually enter everything. So most of the stuff will be populated on its own. It takes less time. It requires, and of course the fact that with ATS and AI coming into play in recruitment, there is a lot of analysis that can also happen. From a recruiter's perspective, again, I'm saying a lot of predictive analysis. You can go back to your historical data and identify who are the kind of people who are likely to succeed in that role in future. Also the quality of hire, bias-free assessments can happen, which are a lot more scientific and objective rather than based on whether you really like the person. So some of those advantages are there. Of course, the con is that if you have not optimized your resume, some good profiles might be filtered out. So because when you manually look for resumes, then you know that okay, this person may not have articulated certain things which is software friendly, but this is a quality person. But that aspect might be filtered out in ATS. So those are the cons.
Every system has their pros and cons. It is not possible in today's world to manually scan all the resumes. Looking at the number of resumes you get. So we've had some very serious career talks. Let us switch gears. So I think, Nandita, you have scanned a lot of resumes, conducted several interviews. Would you like to share with us any such funny incident you have encountered in an interview or you have seen in a resume?
There are many actually. Of course, those bloopers have gone down today with the excessive use of the internet, paid resume services, AI and automation, like you mentioned. Those bloopers have gone down. But over the years, in the past, I have read some interesting and funny things on resumes. I remember I was once interviewing for somebody in retail in my last organization. So this person's resume said that my job responsibility includes checking customers out. So, and the person did not get it, obviously. It was a genuine mistake, but I had a good laugh, yeah. So he was not sure as to why I was laughing. So that was one. Then once I remember, again, this was one of my early jobs where I had asked. So it was an interview and the person said, my hobby is traveling. So I asked the person, which is your favorite destination in India? So he said, Goa. I said, okay, what do you like so much about Goa? He said, Goa is full of beautiful beaches. So the B, if you make it shorten, the vowel sound, from an E, if you make it E, you know what I mean, right? So he said, Goa is full of beautiful. Yeah, those incidents do happen. Just let it be. And I would not even suggest highlight it because that will maybe unnerve the candidate a little bit. The candidate might also get a little embarrassed. So just move on. Maybe you can give the feedback after winding up the interview. So those are some bloopers that I can think of right now.
So I think everyone watching this video, avoid such things in your interview and your resumes.
Yeah, something recent, Nazia. Something recent. I'm sorry, I'm taking the liberty of sharing this. Somebody recently I interviewed for one of the roles in my team. So the person said that I have a bachelorette degree. I have a bachelorette degree in computers.
So it's better to go prepared, have a script, I suggest, especially of some of the predicted questions, some behavioral questions that you suggest that a candidate should prepare before attempting for an interview. Keeping in mind, like early professionals.
Right, that's a very important question, Nazia, because no matter which part of the world you live in and no matter how big or small the organization is, from an organizational structure perspective, organizational vision perspective, these are some of the common competencies that all organizations look for are, for example, people who can work in a team. So please do expect, and again, since we have been talking about early stage career professionals, questions related to teamwork, collaboration will more often than than not feature in your interviews. So teamwork and collaboration, for example, a question to the effect of share a situation where you had to work with somebody who you did not particularly agree with, but how did you work it out together, and what did you do to bring the person to your side? That's a teamwork and collaboration question. Again, next, I think more or less all organizations have customers at the core of their decision making. So anything related to customers or clients, client obsession, quality of service, or even customer service, those questions will always feature in some form or the other in your interview. For example, a question to the effect of talk about a scenario where you could not meet client expectations or you could meet client expectations. What was that scenario? What were you trying to achieve? What was your role in achieving that? Or if you have not been able to achieve, what do you think went wrong and how did you correct it in your future work relations with the client? So those are some questions which more often than not you will experience in your interviews. Questions related to what motivates you. Again, no recruiter would ask what motivates you because behavioral questions are more guiding in nature. So for example, if I were an interviewer, I would typically ask, what has been your biggest achievement in life? So that gives me a sense of what motivates you. So those are some questions which are quite common for recruiters to ask. So, and also questions which, like I mentioned, in today's day and age, you can expect a question or two on technology and digital skills. For example, in HR, if I were to kind of look at interviewing somebody in HR, I would typically ask, what are the digital tools that you have exposure to and how have you implemented some of those tools and techniques or technology into your day-to-day job? So that's something that you would typically ask. Or even things like, what is your view on the impact of digital technologies in your specific area of work? So these are the questions that that come to my mind as far as younger professions are concerned.
Thank you, Nandita. These are like very valuable points for early professionals and freshers. I hope they are making note of everything. Coming to one favorite question of HR, the one which I call the Alu question. Tell me about yourself. So from an HR perspective, what are the key points that should be there in an ideal answer for this question?
Firstly, I would like to say that please prepare for this question. A lot of people feel that these questions are anyway I can answer on the spot. See, if you are exceptional, you're a natural speaker and you are so used to interacting with people, starting a conversation, all of that, which is rare, it's okay. But otherwise, if it's an interview you're talking about and you really need to land that job, it is important that you go prepared. So tell me something about yourself is probably a question which will feature in 9 out of 10 interviews that you will ever take.
Yes, every time it pops out.
Yes, because that way the recruiter is also trying to kind of make the person comfortable, because this is one
Yes,
question.
break the
Yes,
ice.
break the ice, because like you said, breaking the ice, Nazia, and also this is a very non-technical question. The focus of this question is just you. Now you have two options. Either you get overwhelmed and confused about this question, or the other way you look at this is completely about me. So the whole control of this answer, is with me. You can really make this impressive if you're prepared by having some kind of an elevator pitch ready for yourself. And I don't want to digress too much and talk about an elevator pitch, but essentially the elevator pitch means what is it that makes you unique and what service do you bring to the table, and why is it that you feel that you can add value. So if you can prepare some of those things in this answer while you introduce yourself, it's important to it will most likely create the right first impression. I want to take a few seconds in talking about first impression. Tell me something about yourself. The reason why that question is also very important is while you are answering that question, your first impression is being formed. And we have all read those researches and findings, right? That a recruiter in the initial few seconds, forget about minutes, in the initial few seconds have already made a hiring decision in their heads. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first impression plays a key role. What do I mean by first impression? The way you appear, the way you communicate, your confidence. Appearance, communication, and confidence. So these are three things that make or break your first impression. So please work a little bit on your first impression. Simple things like introducing yourself in front of the mirror as a practice. do that. How you effectively use your hand gestures, eye contact, your body posture. I can go on and on and on in this area because I do feel that this is completely underrated but highly valuable aspect of hiring. So creating the right first impression. Coming back to the question of tell me something about yourself. Try to say things which are not bullet points here. The bullet points are already there. Tell a little bit about what are your strengths. What motivates you to apply for this job? What has been your background? If you have any experience working earlier, talk about some of the meaningful work or impact that you have created through some of your last jobs. And a lot of times we spend too much time answering this question. So do not make it too long. Make it just long enough to create intrigue. So ideally, from this question, the recruiter should be interested in asking you a few more questions related to you, which is a good thing because you're still in the non-technical area and the recruiter is still interested in you and not just your skills, which is great. It's a good sign. So so those are some things that you can keep in mind while answering the tell me something about yourself question.
That will differ in case of experienced professional, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
For example, if you were to interview me, Nazia, I would start in working backwards. I would talk about my experience of where all I have worked, the regions I have worked, the roles that I have handled, the spans that I have controlled. The span in the sense, how many team members did I have? And it is a great idea to include numbers. Especially if you're an experienced professional, which means if you are an HR professional, saying that I was an HR business partner in my last role where I would handle a technology setup of 500 full-time employees, adding numbers. Like for example, if you're in finance, adding numbers in terms of what is the revenues of the organization, what are the revenues of the organization, how much money were you responsible for, just to quantify and give a sense what was the business value that you were handling. Those are some of the things that can really play a big role, and it will give a sense to the business, to the recruiter, that you have business acumen and not just a theoretical know-how.
You have highlighted a very important point that recruiters usually make that hiring decision, that important hiring decision within like first few seconds, right? So viewers here, I suggest that we all should go prepared at least for this question, because most of the times this question will pop up and it will give us a chance to show our soft skills as well as give an idea of our attitude. Nandita has said that it's better to practice this question. We should not take it lightly.
Yeah.
This is a very important question. And there are enough of resources, enough of information available in the internet. So we can prepare ourselves for this particular question. So it will obviously be different for an experienced one and for an early professional. We'll move to the next question. What do you think are certain red flags in the hiring process? What are the points that the candidate should be careful of?
Again, a very important question, Nazia. When I'm, for example, interviewing something, and everything I share is based on my experience, Nazia. These are not rules carved on, in stone. For example, something that puts me off is when the candidate comes extremely underprepared about the role, no research about the company. Because sometimes what happens is that you end up applying for so many roles at one go, you don't even know which role you're being interviewed for. That's the biggest disservice you can do to yourself. If you apply for a role, please do a little bit of research, especially if you've been called for an interview. Do a little bit of research about the company. Nobody expects you to know everything about the company, Nazia, but the recruiter expects you to show a little bit of interest. It also gives me a sense as to whether you're serious about this interview. A lot of people come for interviews, especially in the early stage, without even reading the job description, not doing enough research about the company, like I said, or the kind of work we do. Forget about the company, at least which industry, what is the kind of work the company does. Those are some of the things that you should definitely do. As a part of your research, you should definitely add. If that's missing and it's clear that it's missing, then it will work against you for sure. The other red flag, which is not very common, but it is a red flag of the highest order, the candidate turning up late for the interview. That is a big put off for the recruiter. Having said that, I don't want to put myself up in a pedestal saying that the recruiter can be late, because I've seen a lot of unprofessional recruiters also. That's not fair. So if the candidate is on time, the recruiter should also be a professional, a thorough professional, and be there in the interview on time. Because you get what you give. So it's important that both of you are on time. The other red flags I would say are when you have not been able to answer specifics of something that you have mentioned in the resume. The sense that the perception this will build in the minds of the recruiter is that you have either lied or you've exaggerated. For example, you have mentioned that you have developed something, an AI solution for your department. But when you're asked that stepwise, can you guide me through? Because if I am a technical recruiter, then I would want to know. So if I ask stepwise, can you guide me through, how did you start the process? What were the other peripherals of the whole project? If you're not able to answer specific details with respect to the steps and you have only been talking about the solution, in all likelihood this will work against you, which means it'll be evident that if you have either exaggerated or this was not your project. There were other people also involved and you are taking credit for something which was not solely yours. So that's another red flag. The other red flags, of course, are when you tend to interrupt the interviewer. That is another put off, because see, when you are interrupting the interviewer, it also shows that in general when you communicate, probably you are less likely to listen to people. And see, nobody knows you as a person. Whatever you demonstrate in that brief interaction of half an hour or 45 minutes, that decides pretty much how far you will go in that application process. So it's important that you avoid interrupting the recruiter. Just be a little patient and actively listen. These are some of the red flags which I feel are completely avoidable.
Okay, Nandita, thank you so much for highlighting the red flags, particularly the last one that about the listening skills. So you should be careful not to interrupt in between, because I believe one who has a good listening skill is a good team player. I think I can go on and on with this session. I'm just loving this session. It is a learning experience for me. But since we have time constraints and the video will be too long, so we will wrap up this session. But before I do, I have a very important question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to fresh graduates, what would be?
Be a lifelong learner.
Absolutely.
When you're starting off, I mean, don't worry about the job title or even for that matter, only the brand. Keep enhancing your skills. At the end of the day, your career might take turns in the most unanticipated ways. So be adaptable, keep learning, be open to feedback, be receptive. Do not be scared of asking questions. That's all I would like to say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nandita. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. As I said, this is a learning experience for me, and for those awesome and valuable insights, I am really grateful to you, and I think it will be very valuable even to my viewers. Before I wind up, I think my viewers will also have several other questions. So with your permission, I'll share your LinkedIn ID and the viewers can directly connect to you and put forward the question. I am sure you will answer them.
I would also like to take a moment to thank you, Nazia. Last but not the least, congratulations on starting your podcast. It requires a lot of commitment. So I really hope you soar with this podcast of yours and some great learnings happen through this. And thanks once again for having me and letting me share tits and bits of whatever little I have learned in my career.
Thank you so much.